This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Early afternoon for some of you. I really appreciate you being here for this best practice webinar here in September. I'm pretty excited about today. We've got a good speaker in Toro on the equipment side of Toro is going to talk to us about a multitude of things. One being supply chain and what that looks like for equipment, and some new things coming out on the equipment side, and everything, just a good update from Toro. So before we get to them, I did want to cover a couple of things. As always, on all these webinars and as we move through the year, our goals are, to get something useful out of these, build our relationships, engagement, and to realize you're not alone. There's other people out there in your same scenario and seeing the same things that you're going through on a day-to-day basis. This picture here, most of us are going through aeration / verticutting / fall cultural practices right now in this month. And I always really loved fall aeration because I knew that means that the season is almost done. You can start counting down the clock of 30 to 60 days, and either snow's flying or the grass is going to slow down and stop growing. So shows another really good, successful, hard years in the books. And I joked around with my GM at the time that every time I punched a hole, I could hear the grass just breathe a sigh of relief and getting that compaction and that stress relief on the turf. So I hope your aeration practices are going smooth. And quick reminder here that the superintendent conference is coming up here in about 3 weeks. Liz will be sending out a updated email with all of the logistics here in the next probably 7 to 10 days. If you haven't heard anything from her in a little while, it's okay. She's really busy right now getting the sales conference put together, which is next week. And once that is off and rolling, then she will have the time to really dive in and get all the final logistics laid out for the superintendent conference. But things are coming together with that schedule. We are going to have the GCS AA will be there to give a presentation on a few different items, and they've asked that if you have a laptop or a tablet of some sort, that if you can bring it along to the superintendent conference. They're going to show us some demonstration things, and it'll be a lot easier if you have it and you can do it right there in front of you, so that you can bring those things back to your golf course very easily. If you don't have one, not the end of the world, we can share, but try to remember to bring one of those along with you. Let's see, and then one more slide here to update on last month's homework assignment. I did receive a couple of emails from you that you did have a good conversation with the general managers, and that's great. That's all I was really looking for, was to get you to sit down with the GMs and set up a time where you could talk. And the one question I really wanted you to ask is, what can I do to make your job easier? And I really did appreciate some of the responses I got from that. A few of the GMs even chimed in and said they asked that question back to the superintendent, which was good. I'll open it up if anybody wants to share. I'll give you go ahead and unmute yourself and share maybe what that conversation brought on from you, and if you like that. So if you're not bashful, go ahead and feel and share. I'll give you just a second. All right. Easy enough. But yeah, so we just want to spur those conversations. Want to make sure you and your GM are communicating and talking. This picture, I just threw this one in there because we were out here at the Broadlands prepping for a tournament last week, and one of our assistant golf professionals looked up in the air and they heard a plane making some weird noises. And one of those things of, now I think I've seen it all on a golf course, but an engine cowling ripped off of an airplane and landed right in the middle of our 5th fairway. Thank goodness nobody was out on the golf course at the time. The surprising thing to me is we called the police, because that's probably what we thought we should do when pieces are ripping off airplanes. And the cop showed up and just threw his hands in the air and was, "What do you want me to do about it?" was his response. So we still have the little engine cowling sitting down in our cart barns in case somebody comes looking for it. But if anybody did see about 2 years ago in Colorado when I think it was a Southwest airplane, big pieces fell off the engine on the Southwest airplane coming out of Denver. That happened right over the top of our golf course as well. The engine cowling for the giant 747, whatever that was, missed our golf course by about 200 yards. So I guess we've got a target on ourselves, and but kind of cool, different things going on here. So we'll get to the meat of the meeting here. I was sent this picture by Eric Kaiser, actually, from Lost Rail. He was out there taking some pictures about a month and a half ago, and I thought this picture was awesome. Really shows the good work that Aaron and team are doing out there. The Lost Rail makes me want to play it even more now that I see these pictures. But we're excited to have Toro here today. We have Kyle Creedwall and Noah Wall here to talk to us about all things Toro. So Kyle, I will turn it over to you. Let me know if you want to share or what you need to do.
Thanks, Chris. Noah will have some slides to share, I know, but briefly, great little timing there. And I know we didn't plan it, but I do have my Lost Rail quarter zip on here as well right now. So I'm glad that that worked itself out appropriately with the picture. That's really nice. Unfortunately, the last time I was there, it was snowing sideways, and I think it was 15 to 20 degrees below zero or something along those lines, but neither here nor there. Well, again, appreciate you all giving us the time. As Chris mentioned, my name is Kyle Creewall. I have the fortune and pleasure of being your all's account manager from the Toro corporate account perspective, and working closely with Chris and other management folks on a frequent basis there at Landscapes Unlimited. And really appreciate the time that you all have given us to present to you all here today. At a high level, I will introduce Noah here in just a second, but as Chris mentioned, we're going to walk through some equipment availability items. I'll say some industrial capacity items, more or less, and just kind of a general state of what the golf market is right now as we see it. But then Noah, being a senior product marketing manager, he's been with Toro I'll let him share, but for quite some time in various respects. And at one point in time was a superintendent a handful of years ago. Ton of experience, and he's led many product development efforts and is very highly regarded and respected within this building, and has brought to life many positive additions to our portfolio in the commercial business that have benefited the golf industry as a whole. So I'll turn it over to Noah here, and he will be happy to jump into everything equipment. And I think he'll probably say it, I'll reinforce it, but please make this a conversation, ask questions. Don't be bashful. We're an open book, and of course we are more than willing to answer any questions offline, and we'll share our emails and contact information afterwards as well. So again, Chris and team, thank you all very much, and I'll turn it over to Noah.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle and Chris. Chris, it says you've disabled participants. Oh, maybe there we go. Yeah, still can't do it. While you're looking at that, I'll start introducing myself. I have been at Toro now for about 10 years. I actually spent a little bit of time with our local distributor here in Minnesota called MTI Distributing. And then, like Kyle mentioned, I was a golf course superintendent prior to that. I actually started my sort of career in golf when I was about 12, working at the local golf course in my small town here in Minnesota. So I was fixing ball marks and doing stuff like that out early in the morning in exchange for free golf. So I've been in this business for a long time with Toro right here in Minnesota. It was a really good opportunity to stay in the business and have a cool job like I have right now, which allows me to obviously get out, visit customers, and do a lot of the things that you all love to do too, which is to be outside and obviously experience the game and play a big part in it. So thanks for having me. I have some stuff put together here. I'm happy to take questions at any time. Like Kyle said, much more enjoyable for all of us if it's more of a conversation rather than a presentation. I don't want to just sit here and drone on the whole time. So please chime in if you have questions or any comments along the way. I would like to cover a few different things today. Obviously, like Kyle mentioned, availability and what's going on with product and manufacturing is a hot topic. I have a little bit of a different perspective on it as a product manager, and I'll share that with you. I'm personally responsible for all of our utility vehicles, our sprayers, our GeoLink, as well as a couple of new vehicles that we have. So I can talk to you a little bit more in depth about those. So I'll share some updates there. Some of it you may know, some of it may be news to you. And then I also just wanted to throw in something at the end, a little bit of an update on our autonomous projects that we're working on. Some of you have probably seen some videos at Golf Show or other areas, but wanted just to give you an update on how that's going. And of course, like always, one of the best things that we do in our job is get feedback from you guys, because that's who uses the product, and that's why we've gotten so many good products out in the field, is we really value that, what we call VOC, voice of customer. I haven't been a superintendent for a couple of years now, so it's obviously better to get that from somebody who's doing it day to day. So that's obviously welcome at any point today. So I'll start off with some availability stuff. Some of the questions, you probably have more than this. I was just sitting here this morning and trying to think of the stuff that I've had said to me in the last couple of years. My job as a product manager here at Toro is basically the sort of the in-between of our products. So I deal with engineering, and I deal with sourcing, I deal with manufacturing, I interact with sales and you know, folks like Kyle. And we have sort of that sort of hub and spoke relationship to all the different entities that come together with the products. And on the front side, we're out in the field, you know, like I said, gathering that voice of customer to make the products fit to task. And on the backside, we're also, you know, dealing with service and warranty and those sort of things to make sure that when we do release a product, it's good. So my spot here is a little unique, and some of you have probably interacted with some of my peers over the years, but it's a little different than maybe what you've heard or seen on the news as far as it goes with COVID and the supply chain and that sort of stuff. Obviously, that's how we got into this position. And to be totally honest and transparent, we're still dealing with suppliers who just don't deliver. It's a really frustrating process, and I understand your frustration, because I'm actually that mad customer when it comes to our plants, and we'll go to them and say, what do you mean you aren't building today? You told me you were going to build today. And then they are that customer to the supplier that says, why didn't it show up today? You told me it was going to be delivered today. So that's sort of obviously the supply chain part of it. But so we do share your frustration in that. Obviously, I want to get equipment made and moved out the door as much as you want to receive it. So I don't think it's any question why we're in this position now. It is sort of surprising even to me and to quite a few folks that we're still there and we're still battling some of that supply chain stuff. In my time here at Toro, I've never seen such an emphasis on supplier relationships and improving those, but also in increasing them. One of the things that you've probably heard in the past is like a lean manufacturing process is exactly what you want. That was sort of the tops of the manufacturing world 5 years ago, where you wanted a part to show up the day before you needed it on the line, because that was the most efficient thing that you could do. But manufacturers have had to move away from that because you couldn't count on that coming. And we're even to the point where we'll order that same part from 3 different people just to make sure that it shows up in time for that. And we'll also add a little bit of a buffer in there, and they won't plan to build it until the parts are actually there. So that whole process has been turned upside down. And in the years prior, when I first started at Toro, it was all about Six Sigma and lean manufacturing and things like that. And that has sort of been turned on its head as of lately with some of the issues that we've had. So I guess from there, I won't take these in order, but I'll jump to my last point of how we've adjusted. That's one of the ways that we've adjusted, and it's worked. So I'll say that we are actually producing at a level in a lot of cases higher than we were prior to COVID. So our plants are back up to speed for the most part. There are still times and lines that are slower or have issues with suppliers, but for the most part, we're still there. And I think that ties into the second part, where I hear a lot of people say, I drive by a Ford dealer every day and it's absolutely full of trucks. How did they figure it out, and why didn't Toro figure it out? And or I go by this power sports place and they have 1,000 4-wheelers sitting there. And from our standpoint, it's basically hinges on one thing, is that a lot of their demand fell off. A lot of people stopped buying that sort of stuff in the last year here, as opposed to when they were buying it really, really quickly. And Toro's even seen this on our residential side. The demand for Z mowers and things like that has really slowed. Residential equipment has slowed, but our golf course equipment demand has not slowed at all and is not showing any signs of slowing. And it's really a testament to the strength of the golf market right now. We just continue to have really strong orders come in, and it does not stop. So obviously we're back up to speed, but we're working out of a hole, and that's why we're still in this sort of situation. But we are adjusting, like I said. So obviously the manufacturing part of it, we're also adjusting our plants. Toro has grown a lot in the last couple of years. We've acquired Charles Machine Works, which includes Ditch Witch and some other brands you may have heard of. We acquired Spartan Z mowers and Intimidator vehicles, and we already have a couple of other manufacturing plants around the country, and we're adding more. So there's a really concerted effort to group products. My products in particular, the vehicles, are high quantities. So we're trying to move those, to a plant that's really good at that. Some of the golf stuff is not so high quantity when you're talking about manufacturing. If in the world of manufacturing, when Ford's making 500,000 trucks, like that's high quantity. Golf is still a pretty small industry compared to that when you're talking about greens mowers or fairway mowers. So it takes a little bit of a different manufacturing process. So the last thing that I've found that may not be public knowledge that I think is helpful from the manufacturing side is we have different availability by product, and a lot of it depends on suppliers, like I said, but it also depends on what lines they're built on, and that kind of talks to the shifting that I was mentioning. But for example, currently a couple of my vehicles are all built on the same line, so they go down the same line, and if you're building one, you can't build the other. And that's something that was never a problem in the past. It was always just to schedule it out and you'll catch up the next month. But obviously, as the demand, like I said, has continued, that's become more and more of an issue. So moving those lines around, getting dedicated lines built for the more high volume products, like the 648, for example, that's one that deserves its own line. Orders for those are really strong. So those are some of the adjustments we're making, and that also just speaks to why some things are available and some things are not. Another one that continues to be sort of a lagging supply thing is engines. So we will get put on an allocation from our engine suppliers, and they say you can have this many of this size engine, and then we have to decide, well, their sizes might not make sense for our products, but the same engine sizing might go in a greens mower and a mid-duty vehicle. So then it's a game on our side to try to decide which amount to put into which category. So there's a lot of things at play. It doesn't really ease any of your availability pains if you are waiting for product and it's been longer than you hope. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into at least how it looks from my side, and definitely want to leave a little bit of time if you have specific questions about anything I said or anything that you had going on prior to this.
Well, Noah, do you probably, or I don't know, I want to answer it for you. Do you see this getting better anytime soon? Or is it more of just because of demand is so high, you're going to have to wait till a lot of those orders are fixed until we return back to a quote unquote normal where you can order something and it shows up in a few months?
Yeah, I think there's two big factors. Our manufacturing side is going to get us there quicker. Like I said, we're back to regular speed, and now we're trying to get hyper speed to eat up some of that time. Another thing that we've noticed is happening is because of this, there's lots of customers who might not need equipment right now, but they're putting their orders in. They may not want something till 26, but they're quote unquote getting in line, and we're trying to do our best to understand that the timing of when they need that. And that's obviously a relationship between us and our distributors, and we need that communication. And that's sort of the new world of what we need. If you're just getting in line and you want it in 26, that's good for us to know, so that we aren't getting that confused with an order that somebody needs, this coming spring, and it's, pretty important for them. So, how quick is it going to be over? I don't really know. I would hope that we make up a lot of ground in this next coming year, in my categories in particular. Some of it might be a little bit tougher in the short term as we sort of mix around our production plants and get back up to speed at those plants, but hopefully that means it's quicker and better for the long term, and I'm speaking long term, like by the end of next year, not 5-6 years down the road. So sorry, that's somewhat of a non-answer, but it has got better. Like I said, we've caught up, like I said, as far as output goes, but we need to obviously go above that because the demand hasn't slowed at all. Good question. Anybody else? All right. Well, if you think of something, or if something comes into your brain as we're going along here, please feel free to jump in. I'll transition to some of our new products. You may have seen some of this, you may have not. Like I mentioned, I'm responsible for our commercial vehicles. I thought it might be a good idea to sort of level set the group with a little bit of history. We've just hit the 30-year anniversary of the heavy duty, which is kind of a cool one for us. The heavy duty was obviously a kind of a game changer in the turf business. Was the first of its kind out there. There's obviously others that kind of look like it now, but that was released in the early 90s, followed by the MDX, which was in the early 2000s. So for a long time, those were Toro's vehicles, and that was sort of pretty small offering, but very focused on the turf business and obviously on the golf market within that. Fast forwarding to the 2010s, in 2016, we launched the GTX. At that time, it was carbureted gasoline, and we had a lead acid version. And since then, we've done quite a bit of changes to that model. We had some issues with the first versions, and we also went to an EFI engine, and we also transitioned to a lithium battery in 2020. So basically relaunched that product in 2020 with a bunch of upgrades and different power sources. And that one continues to be a really good one for us. Just last year, we launched the Workman UTX, the second one from the bottom, which is basically a 4x4. Has some unique features I'll talk to you about here in a minute. And then right now we're in the process of launching Vista, which is a little different than what we normally sell. You can see it has one big difference, and that it's not red, and there's some intentionality to that. And I'll walk you through that as well. So we've bolstered the lineup here in the last couple of years quite a bit. And the idea is to try to have that machine for every task that you might have. And obviously with the Vista, it's extending to what we would consider the front of the house, potentially the driving range or the clubhouse, or if you are a resort property, things like that. So sort of filling those gaps in along the way as we continue to develop different vehicles. I'll start with the UTX. I won't spend a ton of time on these, and you guys can read them as I'm talking, but one of the big differences here, there's a ton of these side-by-sides out in the market, but 95% of them are made for fun. They're recreational based. They are designed to go really fast and be really loud and sound really cool. And those aren't necessarily the attributes that you're looking for on your properties. You actually want to have the control over the speed. You don't necessarily want it to be loud. You want it to be quiet. And you're not necessarily driving up and down a trail at 50 miles an hour either. So we decided to build this machine a little bit more focused on the work environment. That's really our sweet spot with our vehicles, is vehicles for work. So we built this one a little bit more robust. We spent a lot of time on suspension and bearings and bushings and things like that, obviously leading to better durability. But one of the really cool things about this machine is it's ground speed governed. So we actually have the ability to set different speeds for different tasks, and really gives you control, especially if you're using this machine with your crew. You can use a key and lock out certain features. You can lock out the speed if you don't want them to have four-wheel drive or front diff lock in the summer, because they'll just cause trouble. out on one of your fairways, you can actually take that away from them, and then you can hold on to the key and actually unlock that and give it a higher speed if you want it as well. So really cool features that come along with that. Other things you can do is it has cruise control. It has a seatbelt sensor. So if the operator isn't wearing their seatbelt, you can actually make it go 0 or only 3 miles an hour or something like that, if that's an important aspect to a vehicle for you. So on top of that, there's a gas and a diesel option. So different powertrains depending on what you're interested there. A bunch of cargo capacity and obviously a bunch of cool attachments. Toro obviously owning Boss snowplows. We integrated the plow mount from the Boss snowplows. So this machine hooks up to a Boss snowplow really, really easy without having to attach an underframe undercarriage attachment point or anything like that. So cool integration there with Toro and Boss. Just recently also, we've a lot of you are probably familiar with the MDX. We now have that available in lithium. So this is a really cool machine, same capacities, same towing, all the stuff you're used to in an MDX, but now has lithium power. So learned a lot with our lithium GTX, and now happy to offer this one with lithium as well. Couple of the cool things, it has obviously onboard charger, so you can just plug it in wherever you are. If you're in the clubhouse for lunch or for a meeting, you can plug it in at any time and sort of opportunity charge it. But one of the really cool things is that it has an automatic parking brake. So take your foot off the accelerator and the brake comes on, you get back on the accelerator, the brake comes off. So just one less thing to worry about, again, if you're utilizing this with your crew or for yourself. And that's really convenient to have.
What's the
Yeah.
runtime on that? I mean, how is it?
Yeah, good question.
Couple days? What do you got on there?
Yeah. Runtime is such an interesting thing. We're actually like digging through a bunch of data we took over the summer. It's a tough one. A lot of people, and you guys can tell me if I'm way off the mark here, but a lot of manufacturers will say 60 miles. And in my experience, superintendents, technicians don't have any idea how many miles they're actually driving. I could be wrong. You guys can answer that, but we're trying to figure out a way to really communicate what to expect. And the other part that makes it difficult is, do you have hills? How fast are you going? You know, all those things really weigh heavily into the use of the machine. We found that if you're towing a Pro Force blower with a lithium GTX, for example, and you're going full speed, flat out up and down the fairway for 3 hours straight, that might be your entire battery. That's actually quite a bit of a drain on that battery. If you're using that same GTX with the same amount of batteries and you're just kind of driving around, or you're cutting cups, or you're just moving around the property, you might only charge it every 3 days. So the range is huge. The sort of rule of thumb right now we're looking at is about an hour and 15 minutes per battery, and this has 4 in it. And so you could get quite a bit out of this. And the other thing we found during this study is that we would talk to superintendents and assistants, and we went to sports fields, and we sort of got a variety of different customers in this study. And a lot of people were like, well, we work 12-hour days, so it's really got to last. And we would put some devices on their machines, and we'd come back and we'd say, you did work a 12-hour day, but you drove for only 46 minutes. And they're like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy. Don't tell my boss that. And we're like, well, it doesn't mean you're not working, but vehicles are either taking you to the work or sometimes doing the work. And that's kind of what decides how much battery you're going to use. But as a rule of thumb, people are usually driving for about 10 minutes out of every hour that they're actually working. Again, depending on the cases, if you're pulling that Pro Force blower, then obviously you're driving. Your pedal down time, as we would call it, is a lot higher. So it's variable, but we're trying to get something that's easily digestible. I mean, we have all the data from all these different customers, and we're trying to get something that would make sense. But I guess, Chris, what makes sense to you? Is it hours of drive time? Is it miles? Is it?
It's tough, right? Everybody looks at it a little different, like you said. And And I think that if guys can understand the amount of time they drive, I think it's probably hours of drive time. Because I
Yeah.
know there's probably people on the call who say, well, 4 hours. Well, that's only half a day. But that's, that is probably 2 or 3 days of driving for a lot of guys. So
Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts on that? It is tough, and obviously a demo goes a long way. If you can put it through the paces of what you plan to do with it, that's obviously the best way to find out if it's going to work for you. This MDX has 4 batteries. The GTX has 2 with the option to add the third, and so does the Vista. So in that GTX, that might be your sort of get around cart. Depending on what you do with it, you could, pay a little less and just have the 2 batteries if you're sort of just driving around and checking things out and not necessarily hauling or towing or doing anything like that. But if you are going to be doing more of that work, you have the option to add that third battery. So that obviously is going to increase your runtime. All right, the last vehicle, this is our Vista. Some of you, this may be sort of out of your wheelhouse, but I'll touch on a few of the concepts here. Like I mentioned before, we're sort of filling the gaps in our vehicle lineup. The first couple of things I'll say is it's definitely not a golf cart. We have no intention of playing golf with this vehicle at all. This is again, like I said, a vehicle made for work. And there's actually a lot of huge advantages to not starting with the golf cart. Most of these shuttles are golf carts and golf cart frames that are stretched and bolted together to make these sort of shuttle machines. So having the ability to start from scratch on this machine was huge and let us do a lot of different things that again, you can read about here. But a couple of them are that same automatic parking brake, same, like I mentioned, the 2 batteries versus 3 batteries, the ability to adjust that. And then a lot of just the creature comforts of the machine, you're really limited as far as seat height and foot room and things like that when you're building it off of an existing golf cart frame. So that gives us the option to have a lower step up in the rear and more leg room. And keep in mind that this is a product that's probably used a lot at a university on a campus tour, or like I said, going to the driving range, and you might have your clubs right there between your legs while you're in the back seat, or to a resort. So the fold down rear seats, you put the luggage in the back to take people to their hotel, or vice versa. If it's time for their tea time, you can pick them up or take them to dinner or whatever it may be if you're on one of those resort properties. And then obviously it's not red, and that was intentional, like I mentioned from the outset. This is a machine that's what we've said internally is used by our customer's customer. So your customer is actually the one who's experiencing this. So they want to see your logo on the front, or they want to see the University of Colorado colors and logo when they're touring that school. They don't really care if it's a Toro and that it's bright red when that's not the school's colors that they're visiting. So we left some ample opportunities to use customer branding as opposed to the Toro branding in this instant, just because it is sort of that face of your property, and it's one of the first things and last things that your customers actually see while they're on your property experiencing it. So one use I added on the bottom right there, in our 4-passenger configuration, we have a nice, pretty good sized cargo box. And again, talking about that use where you may not be doing much hauling or towing, and it's probably just your vehicle, and you might just be getting around the property depending on what you have going on that day. This could be a good option for that for sure, since you do have a little bit of cargo room in the back. It's option to have it in lithium so you can get around quietly, and could be a little bit more cost effective than potentially a full-blown utility vehicle when you may not need that sort of cargo capacity or towing for whatever the job may be. So thought I would share that one as well. Any questions on vehicles? Any of the ones that I showed or didn't talk about? I'm open to anything you got at this point.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I have been living on a lithium since I don't remember, but I have put it through its paces with no issues.
Is that our
All in a ball.
GTX?
Yeah,
Okay.
pulling a blower, pulling greens mower trailer, you name it, and can't say enough good things about it. Other than it can be a little tippy, as these guys can all tell you. We tend to go without considering
Yeah.
the slopes and so forth. But and I have done 8 years worth of lead acid MDX. There is no comparison. You guys did it right on that one.
Yeah. Thanks for those comments. Maybe I'll have to ship you a ROPS and a seatbelt kit if you're going to be building it.
Yeah, for me, evidently. We all at times have to tell our troop, do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the job. You got to get where you got to go, and you know what you're doing, and I understand that. So thanks for the comments. Like I said, it's been really good. So now with the 2 versus 3 battery option, you can kind of do a little less than you have right now, or you could actually do a little more as far as power available goes. So if you were ever to get another one, you could sort of make that decision, because if you never ran out, maybe you don't need as much kilowatts on board.
Do you have to change anything to add the third?
It's a really interesting world that we're getting into. You could start with the 2 and see how it goes, and add the third if you weren't happy with the runtime. There's two parts to it. Everybody always talks about runtime, but there's also a like instant power availability. The more batteries you have tied together, the more you can get into them really, really quickly. If you only have 2, you're somewhat limited in that. So like say you needed to accelerate up a big hill every morning out of the shop, those 2 batteries might actually limit you. Whereas 3 would give you more instant power as well as more runtime down the road. The other consideration is the more you get into the batteries, the faster obviously you're using up the cycles. If you have more batteries and you're barely using them, the longer the life, over years, 7, 8, 9 years can be expected if you're not using them. And the battery folks that we have are really talk about it in cycles. So if you only use 50% of your battery every day, every 2 days you're doing 1 cycle, 100% cycle of that battery. And that's really how they talk about the life of the battery to us and what we can expect. So it's easy to sort of extrapolate, depending on how much you use every day, how many years you could expect out of that battery in the long term. But it's a little bit preference. It's a little bit, like I said, even with this vehicle, if you weren't really using it as a heavy hauler, you could potentially do something like this as well. And your lithium also is a bit lifted. We're gonna potentially offer that in a non-lifted version here coming up real soon. We had intentions to do that actually a couple of years ago, but put a pause on it just due to the manufacturing situation. We really didn't think it was a good idea to shake things up as far as different models go. But that is our idea, to offer the lithium in a non-lifted configuration, as well as our extended, where you could either have a 2-seater or that long flatbed that a lot of irrigation techs and mechanics use.
I very much like the lifted.
Okay.
Because I'll take off through the dunes, through the native, looking at broadleaf or whatever, and really have not had any issues. And I'll check it when I plug it in. Typically I'll be at 40% at the end of the day, but I've had it a couple of times where I limped it in
Okay.
just enough to get home.
Yeah, that's good. All right, I'll continue on. A little bit of an update on GeoLink sprayers. I'm not sure if anybody on here is currently using GeoLink or any other sort of GPS spraying. Is that
Yeah, there's a few
Okay.
that have the GPS sprayers. I think Actually, Aaron at Lost Rail, I think, has one
Yeah.
that he's
Yeah.
using there too.
Okay. We have some updates coming to GeoLink, and the majority of them are sort of expected likely, but also are for those customers who may not had the best signal coverage or had issues. The first one really is this new receiver. Couple different things that come with this is that currently we're tracking off of 2 satellites. This one will actually give us 4. So just more opportunities to have a good connection. And it also gives you SkyBridge, which is basically a backup. Sometimes it's called PPP. But if you do lose that satellite connection, it basically gives you a backup so that you don't drop your signal and have to go manual for a while. The second update is just a larger, more user-friendly display. As you know, technology like this improves by the month. And this display is a little bit bigger, a little bit better visibility in the sunlight, which obviously is important. It's like all golf course equipment and any of our displays, you have to have something that's really good in direct sunlight, but also looks good at night, because obviously you're starting in the early mornings and often going in past dark at night. So both of those are really important. We've added machine to machine, so machines can talk to each other. They can pick up where the other one left off. Or just makes it easier for one to come out and the other one to pick up where the job ended while they're back in filling up again, especially if you have a big job or a wall-to-wall spray going on. And then lastly, this one probably doesn't affect most of you, but as we continue to progress with this sort of stuff, our international customers are obviously looking to get in on this GPS spraying as well. They prefer our sprayers but also want to have the GPS. So one modem that works around the world is the goal here. So and it will just automatically pick up what's the best cellular coverage for your property. So hopefully some really good updates there as we continue to get more and more of these systems out. Most of our customers are pretty pleased with how it's going.
I know, real quick, Noah, I know this data
Yeah.
is up there, but what are guys seeing on savings of product or application time from a GPS to non-GPS?
The number we landed on, again, with some being higher and some being lower, was about 30%. There's settings within the spray system where you can sort of dictate how close you want to be to your lines. If you want to ensure that 100% of your green is sprayed, obviously that requires just the slightest bit of overspray. Even because the nozzles, you have individual nozzle control, but they're still, I forget, once they hit the ground 20 some inches wide. So you really can't get more granular than that. But you can decide, do I want 100% of my green, or are you all right if it hits halfway on the line? And that will change the number a little bit. But for those who have pretty decent chemical application budgets, it adds up pretty quick. All right, lastly, I just wanted to sort of throw this in there. I know many of you are probably wondering about this, and just give you a little bit of an update. We've shown our GeoLink solution. So basically our GeoLink spraying system is sort of growing into this GeoLink solutions umbrella, whereas it would encompass autonomous mowing and other applications. So we've had this system out a couple different times. You could have seen it at the golf show last year. Really cool application. We're doing it a little bit different than others, but if you haven't seen it or been familiar with it, right now it's on a triplex mower, obviously set up with fairway reels, and allows you to sort of get out there. You can see in the picture, do some other side jobs while the machines are out there running. You can monitor them, make sure everything's going good. And then obviously you can still use this mower if you had to. So there's a manual mode and a autonomous mode. So if you still had to jump in the seat and get something done, you could definitely do that. We have these out in the field right now at a handful of different properties in the US and around the world. And for the most part, testing is going good, but this is not like a home run. I think a lot of people envision this happening as like oh, I won't have to do anything. I'll sit with my feet up. But there's definitely some limitations to it, just to be, totally honest with you guys. There's different things that happen on a golf course, and people leave their golf clubs out there, and you have to go out and tell the machine it's okay to continue, and all sorts of different things that need to be considered. And we're working through all those right now, and there's obviously other legal considerations, on the Toro side, but also on your side. Cities have come and talked to the golf course where we're having these and said, what are you doing? You can't have that out there. That's not safe. And mostly they don't have the grounds to say that, but people get a little bit freaked out by it. There's spinning blades on there, and there's a lot going on. So we're still all in on it. We're still working on it. Like I said, there's a bunch of different beta sites going on at the moment. And I think our end target was to hopefully have something in a commercialized form in this coming year. But like I said, with all the other stuff going on, I'm not sure that that's a home run. Just to be totally honest, I think the need is there. I mean, you guys can tell me how you feel about it. I'd be very interested to know what your thoughts are and if you would adapt this. But for us, it's obviously an ongoing process, and there's lots of boxes to check.
Is this, I mean, just looking at it, looks like it's just a basic triplex with the system attached to it. Is it something that can be retrofitted onto current mowers, or will you have to buy a specific mower? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. I'll just say from what I do know, there's no reason you couldn't put it on a regular mower. This is our triflex that's either in an all electric or a hybrid. So there definitely is the need for some of that technology, but it's the equivalent of auto steer like we have on our sprayers right now. And so technically, yes, there's obviously be a limit. You're not going to go back and put it on a 2001 Green King 3. But you definitely could probably go back a little ways. And as we go forward, obviously with machines, there's definitely intentions to make things ready. Autonomous ready is a big term that we always talk about here. Is like, well, if we wanted to pull the trigger on this vehicle, is it autonomous ready? And a lot of our vehicles actually are autonomous ready, especially the electrics. But what's the application for that? Are you guys ready to have an autonomous vehicle driving around your properties? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, and I like the advancements. You see it in the automotive industry. I rode a Waymo car in Phoenix a few months ago, and it was probably one of the safest cars I felt like I've ever been in. So
Yeah,
it's coming, right? It's getting closer and closer, and I think there's applications for it for some of our courses and not for others, but I'm personally glad to see where it's progressing.
yeah, and one of the other things that's going on, I don't have a slide on it, but we've put a lot of resources behind sort of our IntelliDash MyTurf platform, trying to pull together multiple fields of data, whether it would be our irrigation systems and our equipment, and trying to get a place where you're able to put all your information and manage it all in one spot. Sorry, I just saw the question. How does it transport around the course with water and bridges? You can map that out where you want it to drive. Or like I said, if you have an operator who is potentially, cutting cups or raking bunkers along with it, they could hop on physically and drive it to the next location if you had to cross a road or something like that. But you can definitely map it out and it will follow a cart path or anything that you need it to do. But obviously this would play well with, machine tracking. You want to know where it is. You potentially want to know where your vehicles are. You might want to geofence areas where around the clubhouse, so your employees can't drive too fast. Slow them down in that area, or keep them away from areas that you don't want them to mow that day. Things like that are obviously also in the forefront, and they're sort of hand in hand with this advancements that we're making is tying it all together, obviously, and getting that one place where you can manage all your stuff so that you don't have, this for irrigation and this for your equipment and this for your GPS sprayer, trying to be that hub. And Toro's got a unique situation with the irrigation and the equipment. And it kind of makes the most sense for us to sort of tie it all together.
Well, how do you anticipate this comparing to a standard model from a price standpoint?
Yeah, that's probably one I can't answer. I'm not personally involved in this. I would imagine it's probably similar to what our GPS spraying upcharge would be, and I think I'm not even really quite sure on that, but you're probably paying an extra $30,000-$40,000 for that technology that goes on the machine. But that's just don't hold me to that or anybody else at Toro. I just sort of came up with.
Chris, you're recording this, right?
Yeah, that's right. You are recording. I forgot. Yeah, a total guess.
Yeah, I understand.
It obviously has to make sense. I mean, and some of the ROI on stuff like this is difficult because a lot of the benefits are what we would say like a soft benefit for you. There's definitely, you can do the math on your labor hours, you can do the math on some of that other stuff, but there's a lot of soft benefits of, you have perfectly straight lines, you have perfectly 2-inch overlaps as opposed to a 10-inch and then a skip and all that sort of stuff. No bananas. There's all sorts of sort of that soft stuff, but it's obviously got to make sense. And if you were to already have some sort of GPS spray system, tacking it onto that, if you had a tower or you had one near you, would obviously be a benefit as well. Is there a difference in acres an hour mowed between this and a standard triplex? Yes, and it's basically all from the ability to have that consistent turnaround. I'd say you could probably, if it was you as an experienced operator, maybe mow faster than this with good quality, but I don't think anybody's going to this because they're mowing their own greens right now, right? They don't have enough people to mow their greens and they're not skilled labor to do so. So one of you could probably hop out there and do a better job and do it faster. Well, not a better job, but you could do it just as fast. But as you can see, you could have two of them going at once, or you could be doing a second job. So that's really where the benefit comes in. And I think a lot of people think about this sort of as a labor replacement, where really it's probably a labor reallocation. I don't think any of you are going to raise your hand to say you want a smaller crew. So you probably could find other things for that crew to be doing, though. And I think that would be a great story to tell, that you could keep up with some of the other stuff that's been, at the bottom of the list. If this guy could rake bunkers and cut cups at the same time he was, shepherding the fairway mowers, if that's a term that makes sense. Well, I didn't expect to take your whole hour, but I guess I'm getting pretty close here.
No, that was perfect, Noah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, open for more questions now. You can definitely reach out to me directly at any time. We definitely appreciate feedback, and like Kyle mentioned at the outfront, I've been in product development for a while now. Was on our Realmaster 5010H, the 3550, the 3-wheeled platform, the GTX, the Outcross, and all those projects came from talking to customers and understanding their needs and trying to figure out ways to make it easier for them. So we do really value that feedback, positive or negative, because it honestly does go straight into the products that we make. So I appreciate that.
Is it best for, if somebody has maybe an idea, right, or wants a little more detail on what's coming in a few years, is it best for them just to kind of reach out to you, or is it best for them to talk to their local distributor reps and then go that route?
Yeah, that may be better. They like to be in the loop, obviously. We do trainings with them and all sorts of stuff, so we try to keep them as in tune with what we're doing as we possibly can. If you have a really good idea, just send it directly to me, and don't worry about getting a patent on it or anything like that. You can just email it straight to me and I'll take care of it from there.
At the same time, to Noah's point too, I mean, Chris and I communicate quite a bit, and as well as with other members of the organization, happy to answer and relay any questions possible from my direction as well. Not just through Toro Commercial, but if you have questions throughout the rest of the enterprise related to, Noah alluded to Ditch Witch or Ventrac for that matter, that is the benefit of the the relationship that we have and that we've had for a very long time. So happy to carry that torch as well.
All right, great. Well, if there's no questions for Noah or Kyle, gentlemen, I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to get here in front of our supers and show them new things come from Toro. So I really appreciate it. And from there, I will share one last slide real fast here. I believe. Yep. So obviously, any questions? Couple reminders. Don't forget to get your safety skills done. You've got 4 days to get that one all checked in and your whole staff. Monthly inventories are coming up. And stay tuned for some news from Liz for the superintendent conference on details on there and myself. And thank you very much. And just be glad you're not down in Mountain Shadows where he grows his golf course in and then kills it and then grows it back again 2 times a year with his overseed. But Andrew's doing a great job down there, and he's good at sending pictures. I thought this one was pretty good. But I appreciate everybody, and have a great rest of your week and a good end of September.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.